Welcome to the Asking Why podcast. I'm your host, Clint Davis. I'm a marriage and family therapist and licensed professional counselor trained in trauma and addiction. The Asking Why podcast is for anyone on a journey of healing and restoration. If you are searching for answers to life's questions and want to learn more about root causes from a psychological and theological mix, this show is for you. In this podcast, myself and a co-host from Clint Davis Counseling and Integrative Wellness will interview guests on a wide range of topics in order to get down to the heart of the problems facing our world and understand why things happen and how to change the world and ourselves for the better. Want to learn more tips and tricks to living a healthy lifestyle? Visit us at Clint Davis Counseling and Integrative Wellness on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to meet our staff or book a speaker, go to clintdaviscounseling.com. Thanks for listening and be sure to subscribe today. All right, episode 19 of the Asking Why podcast. I got the Lowder Baking Company on here today. I'm super excited about it. So welcome, guys, to the show.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So just to let people know, like, we used to be neighbors. You know, we lived 2 houses down. Kids played all the time. And so, you know, I've gotten to see, from my perspective, your kind of story play out, you know. And so I just thought it'd be awesome to have you guys on today. And like we talked about before we went live, like, just tell your story, who you are, kind of how this small business has taken off and grown and how it's doing so well in Shreveport. And on one end, for people listening to know, like, if you have a dream of doing a small business, that you can do it. That, you know, especially in Shreveport and Bossier, I think there's a huge, like, question around business and where Shreveport's headed. And yet I've seen a lot of families and people like y'all and other people our age who are in their 40s, who are in their 30s, like starting their own businesses and like trying to bring life to Shreveport, and it's going really, really well for a lot of us. And so I think part of that was just like, that was the conversation I wanted to have today, to give people hope, but also like talk through the ins and outs of small business. And, you know, it's Mardi Gras season, so I know you guys are all up in the king cakes. Y'all brought me one, so for those of you listening, you can't see it, but it's in my office, and I'm sure my therapist will be super happy about that. So if there's any left by the time we get done with the podcast, I'll be. We just got one last weekend, so it was really good. And so anyway, so that's the intro. Any comments on that? Thoughts?
You've been able to see kind of the growth of Lowder Baking Company from our house all the way to the bakery from the beginning. So we're
Even
excited to be
before that.
here.
Yeah, really. Yeah, because you were like bringing
just
snacks over.
Well, I mean, we had our normal jobs, our everyday jobs we had before we dived into whatever this is now. Yeah, I was a nurse, and she did real estate, and it was wake up early, go to work, come home, take care of kids, repeat, and hardly get to see anybody. I'd hardly get to see kids. I'd hardly get to see Sarah.
Yeah. So let's start there. So Preston and Sarah, right?
Yes.
So they're the Lowders. That'll be on there so people will know in the intro. But so yeah, tell me a little bit about kind of who y'all are, you know, how y'all met, where you're from, you know, all that kind of intro stuff.
So we had some mutual friends introduce us, funny enough, at a Mardi Gras parade in college.
Nice.
So we
It was
met
meant to be.
It was meant to be. Mardi Gras in our whole story. But yeah, we're both Shreveport natives. You know, I'm born and raised in Shreveport. Preston's born and raised in Shreveport, and we really grew up with so many parallels, but didn't really know each other. You know, had some mutual friends, but we crossed paths a lot. We, you know, found out later that we were in the same choir group as like little preschoolers, and but we didn't really meet until towards the end of college. And we had some of our mutual friends kind of introduce us and kind of met at Mardi Gras parade. We were both planning at the time to like go way separate directions. I was, you know, had my eyesight on moving to Boston for a job opportunity, and Preston was going to go back down south, and started dating, and it just kind of really took off. And about 9 or 10 months later, he proposed.
It's truly one of those stories where it's
whirlwind.
Like, when you know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't long. Like, things are gonna have to change. Like everything, like you plan or you think that you plan. No.
I really feel like both of us went into, when we first started dating, senior year of college, I was at Louisiana Tech. Preston was finishing up at LSU. And we were both like, oh, this will be fun. We'll start dating. And it just turned into something much more than that, so much more
awesome.
quickly. And so we both decided, all right, well, maybe we'll just both stay in Shreveport for a little while, just kind of see how things go. And we'll plan on, moving away to these exotic places. And Preston had started nursing school. And so I graduated from tech, started my job here in Shreveport, both here in Shreveport. And we got married. We're engaged for about a year, got married. And then...
and that was what year?
That was, we got engaged in 2009, got married in 2010. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
That's awesome. Congrats.
It goes by like
It
that.
goes by so fast.
For sure. Well, I was laughing as you're telling your story. I'm thinking like we have a totally different story, but that's the point. Like people ask me all the time, like, what's a good amount of time to date, and and it's like it depends on the couple and the circumstances and God. And,
it really, I mean, on paper for us, it just it seemed kind of crazy. It was all kind of a whirlwind, and
9 months is nothing, right?
No, really. And so started dating, got engaged, got married, and we had all these thoughts of like, oh, well, this is what we'll plan to do.
Yeah.
And then we
that's laid plans, right?
Yeah. Then we found out right after we got married that we had Mary Ellen, our oldest daughter, on the way.
Nice.
So we're like, all right, I guess we're not moving anywhere anytime soon. And then we had our second child, Molly, and then our third child, Charlie. And we're like, all right, we think we're in Shreveport for good. We're going to, plant our roots here. And so, had our 3 kids. We were both working at the time, full-time jobs. I was working for an oil and gas company and kind of their real estate part, and Preston was in the neurosurgical ICU.
Yeah, because I remember that. I mean, I remember you working when we went and hauled that trash that day, and I remember you like, just being exhausted and working shift work and just working so much. And I remember Jason and I being like, good Lord, like he's never home, like, like he's gone all the time,
Yeah, there was even a time when I was working nights.
Yeah.
And so then when you're home, you're not there either.
Right.
You're either sleeping. I might get like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
We were really, ships passing in the night kind of for a while there. And so when Charlie was about to turn 1 year old, that's when I really felt the tug of like, we're spread really thin right now. I really feel the want and the need to be at home more with the kids right now. And so I left my full-time job to be at home. And at that point, Preston took the night shift in the neurosurgical ICU. And so he was working the night shift, and, I'm raising all these toddlers and preschoolers. And funny if that's when the king cakes kind of started to come out. Preston's parents they live near the parade route near the duck pond.
Oh, okay.
And
that's in Shreveport.
That's in Shreveport. And so you were making king cakes, gosh, like in high school and college.
Yeah, I'd make some for family and friends, just for Mardi Gras parades. Wasn't anything
good.
yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah, they were terrible. Yeah. But they looked good. I guess.
Experiments.
Yeah.
It was a start. But he had been making them for years, and during that time, after I'd quit my job and Preston was working full time, it kind of sort of became a creative outlet. I had gone on a girls' trip over the weekend, and while I was gone, Preston sent me a picture. He was like, "Hey, I made you king cake for when you get back," and I was just so excited and so impressed. And got home, and we ate it, and we're like, "Oh, this was pretty good." So we made a couple more just to bring some family members, and then they got really excited about it. And Preston definitely started out more with the baking side of it, and it really got me excited to let's figure out how we can make these pretty. Let's figure out how we can market these. Maybe people will be interested in wanting some of these. At the time there was just a couple king cake options here in Shreveport, and so we just kind of grew it from there. And so the next year we did it again. And
yeah, and what year was this?
That was 2015, 2016.
Yeah, because at the same time, right, I was working other jobs and doing like counseling stuff and thinking about starting a private practice. And kind of it was funny. It's such a crazy parallel of us being neighbors and both like kind of being like, I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm working for this. I don't really like it. Yeah. So I thought that was really awesome. I want to pause you and take you back because I think this is an important part. So part of what I've seen in you guys is like first of all, as husband and wife and parents, like, you guys are awesome.
Oh.
Right. And as a clinician, right, I mean, like, getting to be your neighbors and getting to see how you love on your kids and how you care about each other, like it's genuine. Like, it's a really good thing. It's not this superficial, which is a lot of things, like superficial, like it looks good on the outside, it looks good on social media, but, you know, when you're neighbors with them, you're like, well, you know, like, that's the reality, right? I mean, that's the culture we live in, is this projection of, you know, everything's fine. We have these businesses together. We do all these things, but underneath it, it's kind of a mess. And so I'm saying that so you don't have to, but, like, I genuinely just value, you know, Charlie coming over and playing with Grady, and us being in the front yard, and the years that we had being on Unadilla, and seeing you guys just grow has been really awesome. And so I point that out to say, one of the things that I think is interesting that I want people to think about is, you know, it wasn't that you weren't making money before you started Lowder. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys had really good careers and jobs. Income wasn't the problem, right? It seemed to be time with your family, quality time with each other, and just joy in what you were doing. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Very accurate.
Yeah. So I think people stay stuck in jobs and career paths because it's comfortable and they make good money and they have the bills paid and they have these things, but they're miserable in their families or in their lives, but they don't know how to shift out of that. So can you kind of touch on that and extrapolate that for me, if that's accurate?
Definitely kind of say from my perspective, you know, I had a wonderful job set up with benefits, and it really felt like, though, you know, day after day, I was rushing to get the kids up, rushing to get them ready for daycare, taking them to daycare, rushing to work, working, getting home, getting them dinner made, baths, bedtime. And I was just like, God, I feel like I'm missing out on these days that I'm just wanting more time out of it, because on the weekends I was so, you know, tired. And so for me, it was a very hard decision, because part of me really liked what I was doing. I really, you know, I wanted a career. I wanted, you know, things like that. But it's also, you know, just finding that balance. And I really felt, for me, that I just felt like I couldn't have it all at once. And at that point, I really wanted to focus on kids and family. I knew I wanted a career. I knew I wanted to do, you know, something big that I didn't know what that was. And so after I left my job, I felt a little lost. Like, it just kind of like, you know, I know this is the decision I want to make. I know I want to have more time at home with the kids, but, you know, now what? I've worked so hard for this degree from college, and, you know, what do I do? And so kind of the creative outlet with King Cake just really, I jumped into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and that's what I wanted to ask you, Preston. Like, what was that like, you know, number one, spending the money and the time, but, like, doing what you did for a career, and then, like, what was going on for you emotionally, other than being tired, you know, that made you kind of shift? Like, what was the shifting point?
It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I love nursing, and I loved nursing at the time, but it was draining. I mean, working, they call it a 12-hour shift, a little bit more than that. And doing, you know, some places you do 2 on, 2 off, and that can actually be exhausting as well. But I found that after you work about 4 or 5 shifts in a row, you just kind of get into a rhythm. And I'd kind of push through about 8 to 10 shifts in a row. And by the end of it, just being so drained, I needed like a day or two. And the push to do that was kind of what you were talking about, the battle between, you know, this is my career, but where's my family life at the same time? And trying to cover expenses so that way we could live the lifestyle that we wanted to live for our kids. And so Sarah could stay home with the kids, you know, required a lot more hours.
Yeah.
And it did. It was very difficult. And once I got on nights, I realized nights were, you know, there's people can do nights and some people can't. I'm not a night person. It changes your brain completely. Just felt numb in the head all the time. Yeah,
that circadian rhythm is such a, like, we talk about that a lot in mental health, like the idea of getting good sleep and quality sleep being one of the cornerstones of, like, being sane and having, you know, being present. And yeah, I mean, people have to do it. And for people out there working night shift, like, we get it. So this is a blessing and the ability for you to do it. Not everybody can.
Absolutely.
But what I'm trying to zero in on is, like, to think if it is a possibility that you can do something different and don't feel so stuck in, right? That I have to,
Oh yeah.
right?
I can see how people can feel stuck.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel stuck sometimes. Like you have your hard days and your good days. And hard days could be, gosh, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Of course, the good days, like, oh, this is not bad. I can keep, this is great. I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I can see growth. I can see where I want to go. I don't want to just be stuck right here. I can see where my next step is going to be. But then those hard days, they can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that enough of those, along with,
Especially when you're dealing with life and death too, with your,
it's true.
past job.
Yeah, I remember us talking about, it's like being a nurse, being a doctor, being people that are on the front lines.
Yeah.
It's like I always say it's like the military. People, the outside world assumes like, well, you're trained to do it, so it must not affect you negatively at all. And it's like, well, you kind of do that in your brain where it's like, well, this is my job and this is just part of it, but like it still affects you in a way that doing other things don't.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I always tell people sometimes I'm like, when I'm stressed or when it's overwhelming or when it's just been a long bunch of trauma. We were coming back from the beach this last summer, and there were these big air-conditioned cab tractors mowing these huge swaths of grass, and I was like, that would be really nice some days where you just put some iTunes on and sit in the tractor and mow the grass and go home, and I don't have to care about anything else. And I think professions like yours, like mine, sometimes that can be the taxing part, is that it's never ending.
Correct.
Well,
you can't check out.
No.
And you're so good too, even currently putting things in such perspective. If something goes wrong at the bakery of oh no, a batch of cookies burns, and everybody can get stressed out. Preston is really good about stepping in and being like, it's just cookies. We're good.
Yep.
We just rebake them. So.
Yeah, I can imagine that your nursing and ICU stuff really plays into crisis management and stress management.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. One of the main things that you learn in nursing is you don't stress out. You don't freak out. You don't panic.
Mm-hmm.
When you do, that's when people get hurt.
Yep.
Or you're not able to do your job. So you learn very quickly that you just have to leave all that at your patient's door when you walk in, and no matter what's going on, you just, next step, what's the next thing on the list? Just go to the next thing. And if you don't know what the next thing is, just pick something and do it.
Yeah.
Just tack away at it.
It's good.
That works a lot at the bakery.
Oh, yeah.
And so for you did that. You were in that stressful job. You were working the hours. And so what broke? What was kind of let me catch the story up. So at the same time that's happening, you're staying home with the kids. And I remember this, y'all are baking on the kitchen. I remember you rolling them out on the kitchen table, on
our dining room table. Preston's rolling out the dough. Looking back on it, it's just kind of how do we do that? But he would get up, before his shifts, and he'd get everything in the oven. He'd leave, and then I'd take it out of the oven, let it cool, decorate, and go deliver. Put all the kids in the car.
And that's what I'd say is kind of the hard thing is is trying to explain what was the hard thing. Well, it's I'm already doing this hard stuff, but what is life? It's not chaotic, and we just throw in this whole other thing. Lack of sleep, lack of time, everything, and you just throw in, hey, let's spend whatever waking minute we have already and make king cakes.
Yeah. So what was y'all's? See, I hit it. What was y'all's community support during that time? How were your friends or your family kind of supporting you guys, or were they not?
Before bakery or during?
Both. Was that part of what helped you transition?
We're very lucky. We have a lot of family here in town, and I feel like we have a good support system and support group. And at the time we had one, Marielle, she was in preschool, and then the other two were either in kind of a part Mother's Day out or at home. And so it was a lot of just kind of shuffling around. And, I think it became something where when we started baking from our house, it kind of grew and got people excited. And then we got excited about it. It became kind of a project for us of all right, how can we make this better? How can we, tweak this and tweak that?
Mm-hmm.
And so our, friends and family were so great in the beginning, supporting us by just saying yeah, I'll get a king cake, and we'd make it. And that grew to where we, our last year we did in our house, we made over 500 king cakes. Mm-hmm. This is while Preston's working full time. We've got 3 kids, 2 dogs running around, and that's when we were we can't do this from our house anymore. We've got to figure.
That's what answers your question mainly is, it was a hobby. and it was another little source of income, because nurse salary trying to cover two in a household was just barely a little bit more than paycheck to paycheck sometimes. And so doing the king cakes was another way for us to find some sort of income to do. Like, I think the first thing we did, we decided that Mary Ellen was going to do gymnastics or something.
Lessons, yeah.
With the income that we made from it.
Right.
And so that first year when we sold, 20 or 30 king cakes or something, it covered a session of gymnastics lessons. Right. And so, the next year we tried to make another goal of like, well, maybe we can cover this if we do this many king cakes. I remember the first one of the years where we sold 100, like my mind was just blown of like, oh my gosh, we sold 100 king cakes. And just to look back at it now, it's really neat to see kind of how it grew. A lot of it doesn't make sense on paper. It just doesn't.
I 100% understand that.
We felt like, as it started gaining momentum over the years after years, we felt like we were really onto something. We felt like we both started to really find our little area of Lowder king cakes at the time that we really loved. Preston loved the science behind how the dough reacts to this and what recipe, how can I put in the yeast into where it's going to get fluffier. And I really loved the business development part of it. I really loved how can we grow this? How can we market it? How can we continue to keep doing this? And so we both found areas of the same business that we loved, and that just kind of grew and grew. And that year that we did 500, we were like, we can't do this from our house anymore. And so we started to play with the idea of like, how cool would it be to have a bakery? We really have always wanted to.
It was either we
quit doing it,
yeah,
and we find another thing, or we go all in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I would see you go for runs, and I would just be like, I don't know how this dude's running.
That was my only time.
No, I know. I knew why you were doing it, but like, I just remember being like, dude, I'm so proud of him for taking care of yourself. And that was the other thing that I recognized, is that even through getting to know you and see you. I think part of your success is who you are and who your marriage is, and that you guys always found a way to also take care of yourself. To be genuine. I never saw you, be mean or turned off. Or I'm not saying you're perfect, but it's like there's something about that. You have that it factor that allows you to keep doing the right things. And I just remember thinking, this is just how my brain thinks about everything. But I remember thinking, like, I'm so glad that he's going for a run. I'm so glad they're taking care of themselves. I'm so glad they haven't lost that joy. But I was like, how are they doing this all at the same time? Which again,
I will say, Preston has more energy, just natural occurring energy than anybody I've ever known. I mean, he says he can't work nights, but I kind of think he's built for those hours.
My brain doesn't ever stop.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
And it's hard for me to sit still.
It's the pro and the con, right? It's the strength and the weakness. Yeah.
Double-edged sword.
I'd say that
you're like, sit down.
You kind of briefly touched on it too. Part of, I would say, why we're doing what we're doing right now is not because one or the other, but because of both.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It's truly a combination of what she brings and what I bring to the table. I cannot begin to tell you how much of it would if I've just had the reins from 100% from the go.
It is neat finding the areas of it that we love, and we're fortunate. There's a little bit of overlap, but we both kind of just have our areas that we love about it, and that we get excited about it and want to grow it. And so whenever we did make that transition of, okay, can't do this out of our house, let's go for it, we really for months and months played with the idea of like, well, maybe we can work part-time and then also do the bakery. And really right when we got to the point, so we started putting together our business plan after that big
how did
season.
you do that? So as a couple, if somebody's listening, they're like, I'm going to start a small business. What did you guys meet with a business planner, or did you just do it yourself, or how did that work?
Started out, we kind of tried to build kind of the bones of it on our own, and then we went to a local group here called EAP, the Entrepreneurial Accelerator Program, and we sat down and met with them. We said, hey, we've been doing this hobby out of our house, king cakes, and we really we want to grow it, and we have this big dream to have a bakery, and we want to have other aspects with it other than king cakes, and this is kind of how we want to do it. And they were so great at kind of helping us with our forecasting, with kind of just making sure the financials make sense, making sure, okay, if you have this rent, if you have this, all these plans, this is how many you're going to need to sell in order for this to really make sense.
A lot of Excel sheets.
Yeah, I
lot
bet.
of Excel sheets. And it really,
Because it's numbers, a lot of it, right?
Yeah, business
Especially
analytics.
with food. Yeah.
But also kind of to the flip side of that, you can have everything on a sheet with numbers, but also you just have to kind of be a little naive and a lot optimistic and just jump out there and do it.
Oh
so
man, the risk is people don't understand.
that was the hardest part. So whenever we played around for a while about well, Preston can work part-time, maybe I'll work part-time, and when the kids are in school, we'll kind of piece it together. And the decision of like, no, we have to at the time I was doing kind of real estate on the side, and with deciding both of us are going to have to really quit what we're doing to put 100% focus if we're really going to do this. That was probably the hardest decision. And we decided that, and we didn't tell anybody. We didn't tell family.
Because we knew what they were going to say.
Because they're going to go, what are you thinking?
You're crazy.
Well, that was my question, is I wonder, because I didn't know either. It went from like, y'all baking, and then it was like, oh,
surprise.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen my parents more concerned.
Like all of our parents,
bet.
like we really wanted to make sure we came up with our business plan first, and we came up with our, everything we could think of. And the last thing we were going to tell people is like, oh, by the way, we're quitting our jobs.
Because we knew we didn't want to have to convince anybody of
Absolutely.
it. We wanted to.
Because we knew what they would say.
We wanted to convince ourselves.
Yeah.
And once we knew, we felt comfortable with it. It didn't matter what anyone else thought.
And it really got to a point where we were like, we know in our bones that this is going to work. We don't know exactly how. We kind of had to have a little blind faith in it of
Absolutely.
just that this is going to work out. We feel really good about. We feel like we're going to work hard. We're going to do it right and grow it the way we want to, and in a smart way. And we just kind of had to do it. And so launching off and just kind of taking that leap, once we got our business plan together, we went and, we were first looking at doing a bank loan to get all this put together. But with the business you've done out of your house, you don't really have that
Proof.
much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no numbers on
not a lot
paper.
of analytics that you can, they may be like, oh, that's a cool idea, but And so we decided to go the route of an angel investor group here in Shreveport. And so we pitched it Shark Tank style to 65 investors one day at the Shreveport Club downtown, and had a PowerPoint, showed them this is what we want to do. And we had 5 investors say that, hey, we're interested in this. And we had 3 investors come through and say, we want to support you. Here you
Wow.
go. Here's a loan.
Yeah,
And,
I did not know that. That's
so
awesome.
That's how we got started, and we're very, very grateful to those 3 investors that really jumped in, and that's how it got started. So once we had all of that lined up, once the build out had almost been complete, that's kind of when we said, hey, family, y'all know we're working on this, but hey, here's the real plan. We've quit our jobs. We're doing this for real. We're opening up the first week of January, and
that was
just
what year?
Did it? That was 2019.
Yep.
So we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary at the bakery, jumped in, truly with a big dose of being naive and optimism. We had no idea what we were getting into.
I'll say that kind of answers people looking into getting a business, like, how do you feel prepared? It's like having a child. You can read all the books you want. You can try and take advice from everybody else, but you're just going to have to learn the hard way.
You will never have all the answers beforehand. So
Oh
you
no,
just
and
have
you
to
keep
jump on and
learning,
do it.
right? That's the thing. Y'all are new. I think we'll be 4 years in March. So I think I started the practice a couple years before y'all took off, and yeah, I'm still learning things that I learned a big lesson last year, and big lesson the year before, and it's like you can plan and you can look at paper and you can look at numbers, but God does what He does, and people do what they do, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I know y'all have too.
It really, and just being, in Shreveport, like you were saying earlier, just people kind of wondering about business in Shreveport. I truly feel like Shreveport is craving, young entrepreneurs to start their business. We didn't know we were hoping we'd get a lot of support when we opened up, but we didn't know how sales were going to go. You can only forecast,
Yeah, you can't guarantee
so
anything.
much. And just the we had such tremendous support from neighbors in the community, and just excited about, hey, like this young local couple that's just going for it. They're opening up a bakery like they wanted to. And I truly feel like, Shreveport supports businesses, new businesses like that. And so we're very thankful for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have a really awesome local community. I mean, I know I do mental health stuff, but, when people trust you and they get behind you, then word of mouth and, we call it internal referrals, like people who are like, hey, I love this, or they're awesome, or go there. That's what people really is trust. They trust your name, they trust your background, they trust the people who know you. And so people will spend money and spend time and energy and take the trip over across town to get something to go for people that they value. Because ultimately, I hope that's the shift we can have in Shreveport, is like, if we see it as a community effort and that we're all in this together, then the better your business does, the better for our economy, the better for the people. We're all benefiting from, being in this together.
That's kind of what our basis of our bakery was too, was not just to be another business, but we wanted to be the community bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And making, everything we make at the bakery is
Yeah.
made.
Tell me about that. That's what I wanted to hear. Yeah. Tell me about the bakery.
We opened up in January 2019 and just doing king cakes for Mardi Gras. We opened up like a week into Mardi Gras season, and just saw a lot of growth. We hired 3 employees to start out with, 2 bakers and somebody who was going to help me with front of house. And at the time I was like, oh, Preston, we've overhired. Like, this is too many people.
And I was saying, no, we don't have enough people.
And I was like, no, this is just, we're too many people. And within about 2 weeks, we had hired, I think, 18 people more, because it was just, it exploded, which we were hoping for, but we had no idea that it was going to just explode that much. And so, at the time, that was one of our first big hurdles, I think, is figuring out just human resources, like, just figuring out how to manage people, manage employees. And we started out from the beginning, we really wanted it to be, the bakery, not just for customer experience, but from a cultural standpoint with our staff. We want it to be a positive place. We want it to be, people are going to work hard and do their jobs, but we want people to, to be just a good atmosphere for everybody. So we've tried really hard from the beginning to really set
We both had that job that everyone has, that they always relate to, that it's never going to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
And
bad wise, right?
Yeah, bad
yeah.
wise.
Yeah, I think you have lessons from any good or bad experience, and we took experiences from both good and bad to say, like,
we know what we wanted.
This is how we want it to be, and these are our expectations. We set high expectations, but we also want to treat everybody with respect, and we want people there to really care about what they're doing in the business itself. And we've just really lucked out. We have an amazing staff. We have, I think right now, at 24, 25 employees during the Mardi Gras season.
Wow.
And they're fantastic.
So Mardi Gras season started, you guys are selling out of king cakes.
Yes.
And so what happened? Like you had to just hire more employees?
So this kind of goes back to just being so not having all the answers, and just being a little naive to, we didn't even have a system of how people could pre-order, because we didn't think we would be selling. Yeah, we thought like, oh, we'll have them baked and people just trickle in hopefully and get them. And that first day that we opened, we were lucky enough to have a newspaper article written about us, and so that hit the stands. And what we sold in a whole season the year before, we did in like a day and a half.
That's insane.
It was nuts. And just, making batch after batch of king cakes, and people coming in, and we would just say, if you could come back at 2:00, I think we'll have some more. And, from there, making a sticker system for pre-ordering. And then from there, figuring out how do we, organize all this. So we've developed a lot of our processes and procedures just kind of on the fly, seeing what needs to be done. And
efficiency.
Yeah, we're
Customers appreciate it, and your employees definitely
Yeah,
appreciate it.
2020 was supposed to be the year of like, oh, we'll just sit back and relax and, figure out how we can tighten up policies and procedures. And the COVID hit, and we're like, well, this is not the year to.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing we missed is you went to school. I mean, like, didn't you go to culinary
Yep.
school? We forgot about that. So it wasn't that you just randomly were a nurse, decided to make king cakes. But I mean, I remember you like going over and they'd be like, oh yeah, he's
He's
going.
in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the best advice I got was from Robbie Ferrier, who owns Rolling in the Dough. He
Yeah.
said you need to go.
Some good bread right there.
Oh, yeah.
He used to have a bakery in the 90s.
And we actually have the laminator, one of the pieces of equipment we bought
He used
from
to make
Robbie.
his cinnamon rolls.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rolling in the Dough. They had
Yeah.
my
They're
favorite
amazing.
chicken salad sandwich on that like really soft
Ooh,
dough. It's so good.
Their burgers
Yeah,
are so
burger.
good.
Oh yeah,
Fantastic.
their burger is fantastic. Yeah.
That was some of the best advice I got. Whether he really understood where we were standing before we jumped into business, it really was. It kind of gave me a really good foundation to figure out what we were going to do outside of king cakes. Because all we did, we were going and we were like, we're going to go do king cakes and then we'll figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
We didn't know if we were going to be open like 3 months out of the year and then be shut down for 9. We didn't really know.
Right.
But then after going to, it was the San Francisco Baking Institute, and it was just mainly focusing on bread. I did the one thing probably no one does. You go to school to learn how to prepare for what you're going to learn, and then you learn it. Before I went, I taught myself as much as I could about everything I was going to learn. Like I read through everything I possibly could, went through every possible video I could think of. So by the time I got there, it was, you've gotten so far, but you couldn't connect these little tiny dots at the top.
Yeah.
And that's all it was just connecting dots left and right. Get there early, 2 hours before class would start. I'd get there like 4 o'clock in the morning. Because it was a fully functioning bakery as well. They sourced their products to like Whole Foods and maybe like 50 other bakeries in town.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd sit there and I'd watch the bakers and see what they were doing, and I'd sit down and have a question Q&A with my instructor, which I think he kind of started to appreciate. Someone that actually cared what he was talking about. And then I'd go home at the end of the day, and everyone else would kind of go out and do whatever they're doing, and I'd sit there and study until I fell asleep, wake up and do it again. And it was just like that for the entire school. So when I left, I felt, my brain. And I didn't ever eat anything because we just ate what we made, and I can tell you cannot live off of just bread.
Living on bread for a full solid 2 weeks.
There you go.
So that was some of the best advice I got, was to go to school. Went to school, really got to tie in what I needed to know to make what we're doing right now successful. And it even helped change my view on king cakes even. I learned a lot of different techniques, and I learned a lot of interesting science aspects with bread making that I could not find anywhere. That's another great thing about bread, is it's really a lost thing. Bread is such a tedious process. No one wants to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You just go to the grocery store. You don't realize really how much goes into making that one loaf of bread. And I can tell you, when I first started doing king cakes, I like to cook. I like to be in the kitchen. I like to come up with new things, but it was all stuff that you could find in a cookbook, or you'd watch a cooking video. And, throw this spice in. No big deal. Figure it out. Taste it. It's awesome. Or not. You know what you're going to change. But with bread, there wasn't someone you could learn from. I didn't have like a great grandmother who was a
Bread maker.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lost thing, right? It's a lost art.
Absolutely. And even when you read it in a book, I was finding it didn't really make a lot of sense for a lot of things, like the terminology and why they called it that, and where that came from and why you did that. But
there's not like a 120-year-old person that you can ask.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you finally understand what it is, it really is one of the easiest things to make. You just have to know how to take care of it.
Yeah.
It's just like a kid, I guess. Everything just refers back to children.
Absolutely, especially right now, right?
Oh gosh. Well, and to kind of touch on that too, I think that was one of the factors that really pushed us with saying, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to do this bakery because we had such a different, we felt unique outlook on what we wanted our bakery to be. We were kind of developing our business plan. King Cakes, of course, is a seasonal item from, traditionally January 6th through Mardi Gras Day, which it can be a 6-week period. It can be a 8 or 9 week period throughout the year. And we had to really look at, okay, what would make this business viable throughout the rest of the year? And just with the beginnings of King Cakes really coming from the love of bread and figuring out dough, and we wanted our bakery to revolve around fresh baked breads, doughs, pastry dough, and that's kind of what came from all of our planning with it, so that we had our King Cakes for our first Mardi Gras season, but then it developed into, we wanted to do croissants and danishes and cinnamon rolls for breakfast, and fresh baked bread and baguettes and French bread, because there's just not a place around here you can really get all of that made from scratch. And so that's where kind of the love of the bread ties so much into our bakery, because we just felt like we hadn't really seen anything like that around here. Of course, there's some places that do their bread, but it's on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
Restaurants are, not really using a lot of local bread that we were seeing. And because bread is kind of a lost art, it's become, you can just, get something frozen shipped in that you just reheat. Or, it's packaged up with lots of preservatives and to be able to sit on grocery shelves. And so we wanted to bring something new to the market to say, hey, this is fresh baked. You can get a fresh baked loaf of white bread or jalapeno cheddar bread and make a sandwich on it, which you may not have, you put in so much effort to the meat that's going to go on your sandwich and the cheeses and the high quality, vegetables, whatever. And the bread was just always kind of the throwaway part for so many people. And that's just something that really piqued our interest of like, we can kind of almost show something new to our market of fresh baked items, but also, kind of change a little bit of maybe we can start something of just making people more aware of like, hey, it doesn't have to be this way. It can be this way. It can be fresh baked. It can be just a different way of having it available.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a great perspective because if you don't know, you don't know. If you're used to eating, just whatever. And even then you go, well, this is way better, but it's more expensive. It's not bunny bread. Yeah. No hating on bunny. But the point is that, but you don't know. And especially in Louisiana, we are a very food oriented, culture. But yeah, the bread idea, it's like, well, I'll just get this. And like because our kids have food allergies, like we had to find different breads at work. And then, I don't know if y'all know what Dave's bread is, but like that's been one that I'm like, well, this is way better than what we are eating. But then you come and get something from like y'all's place and you throw a sandwich on it and you're like, it's not just, like you said, it's not just like a secondary thing.
Yeah.
It's one of the most flavorful things. And I remember my mother-in-law made, I think it was her, had like a bread maker, and she just made like little, loaves and slices. And I was like, we'd put like chicken on it and do different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, the bread is what actually makes this whole sandwich.
It truly is. And that's something that, I joke, we kind of geek out over bread, or kind of like, ooh, this sourdough, it's so cool. But it really is, like you're saying, a lost art, and we just wanted to kind of put a lot of energy into, this would be something really different and really cool. And you see it a lot in South Louisiana, a lot of great bread bakeries. You see it in bigger cities, but there was just nothing really serving the North Louisiana area doing that. And so that's kind of what we really felt like was going to be hopefully our place and kind of all this.
Yeah.
It's been one of the harder things we knew we were going to have to tackle. King Cakes kind of sell themselves because they're King Cakes. Pastries are exciting because they're pastries, but bread, you're having to almost re-educate your customer base, because I grew up eating light-colored, non-flavorful bread. Whether it's a table bread you got from a restaurant, or if it's what mom brought home, either hamburger buns, hot dog buns, or loaf bread. That's right. All you really had to choose from. And so trying to figure out how to introduce what I knew was great bread to people was going to be difficult, because the longer that a bread will sit in the oven, it's not necessarily burning. It'll create, it's called the Maillard reaction, where like the sugar on the outside of the bread starts to color everything, so it gets darker. And so that's where all the fun flavors come out of the bread is in the crust. And so just because you see a dark bread doesn't mean it's burned. And that was kind of like a hard thing. I knew if I put out what I thought was one of the best loaves I could make, no one was going to buy it.
Because they're not used to it.
They're not used to it.
And nobody likes change.
Right.
or risk.
Easing.
And so we started off with like our baguette bread. Baguettes actually have the fewest amount of ingredients in it, right up there next to our sourdough bread. It's just flour, water, salt, and yeast. And it is my favorite bread because of so many unique flavors that come from one bite with something with so few ingredients in it. You get other breads like our white bread. It's an enriched bread. It's got like butter and sugar added to it. And so like you're going to kind of cut away some of the natural flavors you're going to get from flour, water, and the yeast kind of working together. And so with the baguette bread, I started off with a really light colored, really almost pale. It just felt sick putting that out. But that's what people are used to seeing, and that's what people are used to buying. And so I put that out, and we have secretly been slowly increasing the temperature or letting it sit in a little bit longer, and we've been changing the profile of that bread to kind of show people that you can have fantastic bread and it not look, and it can look like it's, I guess, darker or burned, but that's where a lot of your flavors going to come from. And now it's one of our top sellers are the baguette bread.
That's awesome. That's cool to know. So tell me what all y'all sell now. First, so we talked about the Mardi Gras kind of blew up that first year. When did you have to knock the wall out and expand?
So we did our Mardi Gras, our first Mardi Gras season, which was
that was quick.
Oh gosh, and yeah, our 3 to 5 year plan became our 6 month plan, and so we had our Mardi Gras season, and then we took a couple weeks off to just kind of get our staff trained up to do all of our other items. So we reopened about late March to do breakfast pastries, so our croissants, danishes, breakfast pastries, cinnamon rolls, our fresh baked breads, jalapeno cheddar baguette, French bread, and then our sweets, so our cookies, brownies, cookie cakes.
Which are delicious.
Oh, they're so
I think
good.
I've eaten everything at your shop at this point. So.
And so we got a few months into that, and like you were saying, we really didn't know how everybody's going to react to it. Is this going to be something that people are interested in? And thankfully they were. Thankfully they really showed up, and we stayed pretty good and steady and busy. And it just so happened the space next to us was vacant, and so a couple months into it, we kind of mentioned to our landlord, like, hey, like, we're not there yet, but we may be interested in wanting some more space. So he was very kind and kind of unofficially held it for us for a little bit until the time that we were kind of ready of like, okay, we need to go ahead and expand. We were running out of room way too quickly. So we knocked down the wall about 6 months into it, and doubled our size and opened that up Thanksgiving of that year. So we opened up in January, and then by November we had doubled the size and increased our staff. And
that was 2020 or 2019? Okay,
same year.
Yep.
And
that's right.
So that was just a wild year, just a year full of figuring out and learning, and had our first holiday season, which we weren't expecting to be as big as it was, which was really fun. Then thrown right straight into king cake season, and got out of that our second king cake season, and then the pandemic hit, and so everything just kind of went wild, and we had to adjust and adapt with that.
Yeah, let's pause there. So in that first year, what are some things that you didn't know that you wish you would have known? Like, what are the big ones?
Gosh, I think the realization of just kind of figuring out that nobody has all the answers and nobody has it figured out was almost a really comfort to me and Preston, just because, you do kind of fall into a habit of like, oh gosh, I've got to get this figured out, figured out and all the answers and just not knowing everything and just trying to figure it out on the go. Being okay with that, I think, was one of the biggest realizations for me the first year. What would you say was something you wish you knew? Another one, employees not being motivated the same way I'm motivated.
Yeah, they don't care about your business as much as you care about it.
Well, and things that motivate me and get me excited may not be the way somebody else is motivated or can, you know, kind of push or encourage them. And so figuring out how to kind of adapt incentives
I'd say
for
that that's
people.
the biggest one.
Yeah.
There's, I hesitate to say because I'm sitting here running through probably about 100 different things. But I would say absolutely. The one thing was learning what you can depend on as far as another person that works for you. Everybody has everybody has a person or a personal life outside of work. And so I told myself from the get-go, you know, I'm going to run the business for the business. I'm not going to run it for the employees, but at the same time, I'm going to be mindful that they're people too.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what position you had. I was going to treat you the exact same. Still do. I still try to, you know, I think some people kind of go with, you know, like 1 strike you're done or 2 strikes you're done. We have a couple. We have quite a few.
Well, and people have bad days, and just like
and
saying,
that's what it
everybody's
is. It's
human.
just trying to learn to go with what different people's strengths and weaknesses are, and everyone's is different. It's like a fingerprint for every single person. What makes this person tick versus this person? What am I going to get upset about this person? I may not care at all for this person over here.
Like figuring out what they're capable of and knowing when it's not a effort thing, it's a capability thing, and can I deal with that and can I not? And that's a lot to learn. I mean, I think that's part of being a business owner, and myself included, and it's a totally different thing. I don't have as many, you know, my clinicians are all professionals, so there's the same category, but I don't have to deal with a lot of like 15 people who aren't bakers or aren't therapists.
Yeah.
You know, that's I can imagine that being a whole nother area of difficulty because there's so much variant. Right. But even in what I'm doing, like learning, like this person doesn't want to go speak in public, and that's not a you're good or you're not. That's a skill set. So how do I make whatever they're doing, their passion, really good, but not have this kind of expectation or judgment of it being better or worse?
Well, and to kind of go with that too is looking at myself and ourselves and realizing what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses. And with those weaknesses, you know, stop beating myself up of, I can't do this well. Outsource it. Yeah. Figure out somebody who can do it well, and then I can focus on my strengths. And kind of realizing that too has been a really big thing. One thing I know I had such trouble with was, just how busy we were with the first year, focusing on the bakery, focusing on family. The first thing that went was the house. Like my house, I couldn't keep up with the laundry. I couldn't do dishes. And I would get so upset with myself that I just can't stay on top of it. And finally, I remember talking to my mom. My mom's like, Sarah, outsource it. Get somebody to come in and help you with that. Like, that's okay. And just being okay with that was like, this is a game changer. I don't have to feel like I'm failing over here, but I'm doing well over here. I can find, things that I'm not able to keep up with, and then get some, somebody to help me with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. What was it like for y'all? Like for me, going from starting the practice and being by myself, and then us growing and having 2 or 3 therapists, and then having, a couple hundred people who were coming in. And then I'm like, oh man, like there was this time where I was like, I need a full-time administrator or a personal assistant the next year or whatever. And then I'm going, well, I got to cut $30-something thousand out of my income to pay this person. How's that going to ever make me money? Like those kind of things.
Every day.
Yeah.
I mean, those types of questions, it turns into dollar signs, whether you're not necessarily thinking about money, but
no, yeah, for sure. It's not about the money.
It's just exactly. It's how it could be something so simple you're looking at, okay, well, does it make sense to do that? Well, let's see. If you do this, then you're going to have to do this, and this person's going to have to do it, and you're going to have to worry about doing this and ordering this, and then it's going to break down to, that's going to be another extra $100 to do that. No, that's not worth it.
Right.
Well, and two, also, we started out, the way our bakery set up is Preston is head baker.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, for a while, assistant managers under him over the areas, and we, got their positions to where they're managers over those areas now. And we have a pastry manager, we have a dessert manager, and being able to, have faith in them and trust in them that, they know what they're doing, they're going to get it done, and kind of letting them handle, issues and problems too, while we can handle other stuff has been a really good, I think, thing. And that's allowed us to grow.
Absolutely.
In the way we want to.
It's so hard to let go though, a little bit in the beginning, right? Because you're like, I want
This is my baby.
Yeah, and what you're going to give to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there's this balance of trusting people with your thing and your vision, but there's this cool community thing where people come along with your vision, it becomes their vision, and then they take it on, and that's when you can really trust, right?
Well,
but there's such a timing in that with the right people.
And just with hiring too, we've really learned that, we would much rather hire the person versus the skill. I want to hire a positive attitude.
Yep.
I want to hire somebody who's, wanting the opportunity and willing and ready to work, and the skill can be taught. And I would take that so much over somebody that may have the skill, but may not have the drive or may not have the vision that we do. And so being able to, have confidence in who we're hiring and letting them take something and run with it to grow it has been tremendous for us. And
I bet. Yeah, I can imagine in the beginning you just need bodies. You know what I mean? Like you don't really have the chance to really
That's
take
what
the
it was
time.
like. We had to get an agency.
First year,
to help out.
We had a temp agency
to help find us people.
And we'd say, hey, we need a handful of bakers, and they'd be like, well, there's not really any bakers around here.
There's not a big lot of bakers.
I was like, well,
get
send me somebody with kitchen experience, and I'll do the rest.
And we had to just train on the job, and so it really has been neat. We've even had as we got grew and kind of got our rhythm and momentum, we've had some young students come in, and they've done internships with Lowder Baking Company.
That's
and
awesome.
done a baking internship to where they can really, Preston will get all mad scientisty about, bread and everything, and kind of teach them everything, and then they can go home and make a croissant. And so it's really neat to kind of see just the skill set that our bakers have developed, and also just the knowledge that Preston's been able to develop himself and also teach.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Our staff.
How far we've come in 2 years.
Oh, gosh, it's only been 2 years.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
Unbelievable.
We're coming up on 4, and I'm just like, this is
gosh.
insane. But again, it speaks to when you get the right people in, you get the right team, and God's blessing that, and you got a good community support. I mean, anybody, people can do this,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a mess. But I think you said it really well, Sarah, like having that, lowering your expectations. Like that was the one thing that I wish I could still keep as best I can. When we had kids, I remember JC getting pregnant and me being like, the best thing I can do is have zero expectations. And becoming a parent being like, I'm going to have zero. And that was so relaxing. Now that's changed over the course of time. As they get older, you start having expectations. But it's the same thing with the business. It's like, you realize a lot of your problem is your own expectations, your own judgment of yourself, your own measuring yourself against other people. What should I do as a dad? What should I do as a mom? The house cleaning, but at some point you cannot do everything.
Cannot do everything.
And you do have to outsource it. I had a really hard time paying people to do things that I thought I should do because they were less than. And JC's like, you don't have time to do that, and you have a master's degree. You don't need to be taking the trash out every day, or whatever the thing was. And that was really hard for me to let go because I felt like I don't want to make anybody feel less than.
Yeah.
I'll vacuum the carpets every day before I leave. It's like, no, you can't do that. And then I'm like, but it's $800 to, have somebody else come in a month. People don't understand that part of it either. So can you talk a little bit about, just what I was saying, like expenses and the surprises and like what it is to run a small business?
Gosh, I mean,
because people think you just make this million. I mean, and not that you don't make a good living, but there's way more cost to doing it.
There's there's so much even at the end of the month we'll look back and be like, where did some of this go? It's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
oh gosh, okay, let's run a balance sheet and figure out how this is going, so maybe we can improve that next month.
Labor's our biggest cost. I mean, just with the amount of labor that goes into all of our baked goods and the hours, our baking crew, our early morning baking crew starts at 2 a.m. every day. 2 a.m. And that's what you have to do.
Because it's all fresh.
It's all fresh.
Yeah.
It's all made from scratch, and you can't cut corners if you're wanting to do the type products that we put out, and that's what we really wanted to do starting out. And so labor is definitely one of the biggest costs, a lot larger cost than I envisioned, but also just, there's so many little things of, okay, you have these pastries. Well, now you need boxes. Okay, we get all these boxes. Well, who's going to fold the boxes? Okay, well, we need somebody to fold the boxes. And just all these little integral parts that we didn't realize until we were in the middle of it. And there's a lot of little things to keep everything going moving forward.
Yeah, I think I've learned, when you look at, let's say, I always forget the difference, gross and net, and that's what you take home, right? Yeah, gross, it's like, you might go, oh, I made this much in gross, but it's like, what people don't realize is the bigger your business becomes, the more cost there is.
You need more equipment to be able to make more.
Yeah, so you do make more money than you did, but it's the percentage, right?
Your
is not
overhead
the
changes.
same. Yeah, it's not the same as your gross, and so for people who are starting business, when they get out and they start doing the numbers, and they're like, oh, well, if I do this and this, yeah, there's all these things that you cannot plan for, until you're in the middle of it.
A really good example of that would be from the kitchen standpoint. All of our equipment is a certain particular size, and we have a certain amount of space that we can fill with a certain amount of labor. And I would say we definitely have hit the max on how many people can stand in our kitchen and work at one time.
We hit that max first when we doubled. Now we've hit that max again. Yeah. We're like, we need more room.
And so you work your way backwards.
I totally get that. That's why I'm laughing. Like, we fill up the Holland Center, and I'm like, well, I guess we got to build a building because.
You should just keep on filling it up.
It
becomes
for sure.
more of it, and then you go further, and you find all these other problems you didn't realize that you were going to have to tackle. So like mixer size, oven size, table size. How much table space do you have? How many hands are you going to have touching dough at a particular time? How does your time frame from all these different products that you're going to make? You don't make like one product and wait till it's done and you start the next for time efficiency. Otherwise, bread would be like $20 a loaf. It would be ridiculous. So you have to do it in bulk, and the more that you can do at one time, you can bring down your costs and then become more competitive with your customer, your other businesses. Anyway, so I think about that all the time. I'm like, okay, our oven has 3 decks. What if we were to get a 4th deck?
Which means levels.
Like more spaces to put more product. What's the cost to do that, and how much more can I do? Is that worth doing?
And then can I put enough people in here to do it?
And then you worry about, okay, well, we're running out of space with this mixer over here, which we did when we built out, and we needed a bigger mixer. It's like, okay, well, if I get a bigger mixer, how much bigger can I go? Well, if we get this size, we're going to end up bottlenecking in the oven because the oven only has 3 decks. We don't have blah, 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 blah. So it just, when you decide that you're going to make a change, let's say I want to get a bigger mixer so I can do more dough. Well, it doesn't really matter if
your oven won't
take it, if you don't have all the hands that can do it, if you don't have the space that can do it, if you don't have the space for inventory to hold, which that's another problem we have now.
It's just a big ripple effect, and it really,
absolutely.
Every little change can change everything, before it and after it. And we really have developed like a production and timetable, from morning until afternoon of when things are starting and when they're made. And it's kind of a work of art just because it's taken such a long time to really develop and hone in on it.
Yeah, that's good. This is stuff I was interested in hearing, because like that is the hard part. Is success is great, but it comes with different problems that you have to figure out. And what I'm having to learn is like, and I'm sure you too, is like just let it be enough. And then cast vision for the next thing and the next thing. But like, you can't really guarantee anything month to month, week to week, year to year, because it happens so quickly.
Yeah.
I'd say that that's something that's really been eye-opening for me is when I think of our business as successful or being successful, it's growth, growing, expanding. But at the same time, I also think of our business being successful is I'm able to delegate to where I can step back.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have both.
No, you can't.
Or there's a season for both. I feel like you can have both, but it's just not, you can't do it all at once.
Yeah, in order to grow, you have to step back. But in order to like transition into new growth, you have to step back in.
Yep.
And there's this weird dance where it's like, okay, I need to, like for me, I'm like, I'll see less clients. This last year, I realized the first couple of years I was doing too much. I started getting new therapists, delegating, and then it's like, okay, this year I'm going to see 20 clients a week, and I'm going to do the podcast, and I'm going to go speak places, and I'm going to go out and meet with doctors and market and build relationships so everybody else can just show up and see clients. And then the end of the year, it's like, well, I got to step back in. I got to see a little bit more clients because COVID hits.
Yep.
Like, so let's talk about that. So yeah, I had like 30 speaking engagements. Like the year before, I spoke like 70 places. Oh, wow. And so then I had out of that a bunch of speaking engagements, and I had to change like marketing styles, and I had flights booked, and then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, I got to see more clients again, and let's get some new therapists in, and that's a whole nother thing. But how was that with you guys when COVID hit? What was so this was all pre-COVID.
Yes.
So then COVID hit, and what happened?
So 2020 was our second Mardi Gras season in the bakery, and it was a huge season for us. We had just been kind of tagged as #1 king cake by Louisiana Cooking Magazine in Louisiana.
That was huge.
Which was huge, but I honestly don't know that we were ready for that. And so we had this, fantastic, just crazy season. We both kind of came out of it of like, all right, we need to take a breath and just kind of catch our breath. And all right, this year is going to be about, just figuring out how we can get more efficient and get things going more smooth. And so we really went into early 2020 after Mardi Gras season of like, well, this will be a relaxing spring. This will be fine. And then COVID hit. And everything just kind of changed. Like we shut down twice just because we needed time to really figure out what to do. We saw other business shutting down. We've been very grateful that, we haven't been hit directly by it, but it's just, meaning we haven't had to close down because of any employees being sick or anything like that. But it was a scary time because, we had to shut down, figure out what are some new processes and procedures and policies to make sure we're being safe for our employees, we're being safe for our customers, and
figuring out what's going on.
Figuring out what's
we
going on.
We wanted to be in control as best you could be in an uncontrollable situation.
In a global pandemic.
And just being able to adapt. And I do think that's one of our strengths is, we're able to adapt. If something's, a monkey wrench is kind of thrown our way, we're able to say, okay, we need to do this
solving
next.
is definitely up there on what we can handle.
And so, we put up our partitions. We figured out we're going to, do this to keep our employees safe. We're going to temperature check every morning. We're going to make sure we're doing everything we can to, try to figure this out the best we can. And I would say it has had some good things come out of it business-wise from us because it pushed us to figure out online ordering and website. That was something we had the year before was like, oh, yeah, that'd be cool if we had it, but
we don't need it.
We don't need it.
Yeah.
And this forced us.
It'd be nice if we had it.
It'd be nice if we had it, but this forced us into figuring that out. And that has made life so much easier on the bakery side because now somebody at 11 o'clock at night can be like, oh, yeah, I want a king cake Friday. I'll just go ahead and, order it, pre-order it, and for pickup. And it's allowed us to grow in our sales, which has been great. Another thing we figured out is for a while there, we were doing neighborhood deliveries. And we could do bulk deliveries to, certain neighborhoods just to try to, get things moving because people weren't coming out of their house. And so that went really well for us. And then we developed some new products, our pizza kits and our chicken pot pies, take and bake items. And that's...
I need to get a pizza kit.
Oh, they're so good. We'll have them
my
back
favorite.
after
It's
Mardi
one of my
Gras
favorite
season.
pizzas.
Okay. You can't do it all, right?
Oh, gosh, no. We'll have it back after Mardi Gras, but that's been one of like the best things to come out of the pandemic was the pizza kits and the chicken pot pies because it was something that I don't know that we would have done had we not had to figure out, okay, how what are items we can put out there that people are needing and wanting right now.
You have to have time. You have to have time. You know what I'm talking about when you're trying to develop what's something new I'm going to work on.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, me and my administrator laugh all the time because we find ourselves being in the same problem. She's so busy, doing all the things, and I'm so busy, but we need to slow down to get a better system for something. But you're like, when am I supposed to stop and slow down? And COVID was, even though it's been terrible, it was a great season. We were doing telehealth. So although I hated being on the computer every day, it was like, okay, but there were some things I got to revamp last year that I would have probably never slowed down to look at long term. And also I'm going, well, what if we don't go back to face-to-face? Like,
right,
we got to have that portion.
We had to change our business. Yeah. We had to think of our business in a different way. And I wouldn't say we had to rebuild it from the ground up, but we definitely had to change some of the foundations for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I can truly say that pizza kits are a baby of COVID. I would never had the time to do that, and I would never been happy with it.
Yeah.
As much as I changed with it. I really am proud of it though. It's one of my favorite things that's come from it.
We closed down for about a month, right around Easter time, around this time last year. And during that time, we took a couple days just to kind of do nothing and hang around the house with the kids. And then Preston kind of started tinkering, and he likes to get in the kitchen and come up with new recipes. And so the pizza kits, I think, was kind of just a fun little relief for you. Honestly, you'd take the kids up and they'd go and
made probably about 60 different versions before I landed on what we have now.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So it's something good to come out of it.
The kids have fun too. That's part of the reason why it's a pizza kit and not just like a pizza, because it's a family activity.
Yeah, it's fun to put together.
I was having fun with the kids putting it together. And I was like, you know what? They're having fun. I'm having fun doing this. We're going to keep it like this.
Yeah, and other families, I mean, that's the thing. It's not only something that, I mean, who doesn't like pizza, but like that families can do together, and it keeps kind of y'all's culture. And I was going to say, I think that's something about y'all that I love that, and I'll say again, but like that culture of it's not just a product, but it's who you are, and it's your family, and it's your kids, and it's about family, and it's about those things. And I know your brother owns his own business, and I'm sure there's lots of cross conversation there about things. But the reality is like, yeah, you think about it. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit today was in Shreveport, in Bossier, and we can talk about maybe expansion, but like you might have to get a Bossier office. My point is that I know last year or this year you guys have helped kind of with the bridge over on what is that, Ockley?
Ockley, yeah.
So tell me, kind of giving back to the community, how did that start? What's happened with all that?
So that really started, we live on Unadilla Street right by the bridge, and, Press and I would walk across that bridge with the kids, multiple times a week. We'd drive over it multiple times a day. And it really came from just us walking over it being like, oh, like this is such a pretty bridge, but it just kind of looks dingy, and it just kind of, could be spruced
broken
up a little bit. Yeah, like it's, it's a shame.
None of the lights work.
Nothing's really, it's just kind of
peeling.
sitting there. It's just kind of neglected almost. And so we're like, why, let's do a community project. We can put some paint on this, and it'll just be something neat to just kind of spruce up the neighborhood. We have a lot of customers that walk to the bakery. Maybe they'll walk over the bridge and come to the bakery. And so it really started out as just a thought of like, hey, this would be cool to do because this would look nice. And we reached out to our councilman and councilwoman and asked them like, hey, what do we do? Can we just show up and paint this one day? Like, what's the process to do this?
What's the protocol?
Yeah, like because
you want to do it, but at the same time you're like, we have to do it the right way.
Yeah,
you want to just get out there and paint it.
Yeah.
And so they put us in touch with Spar, who was really, really great to work with. And so we sat down with the kind of heads of Spar and just said, hey, we want to do a community project. This is something close to our house, close to our business. We just want to make it, a little bit better for the neighborhood. How do we do that? Really not knowing what to expect with their response. And they were just like, awesome, great, let's do it. Here's what we kind of really need to do. We need to sand it and prime it and paint it. And so it became a bigger project than we initially set out for it to be.
Not something you're not
We
used
were
to.
expecting.
Yeah.
We were expecting no.
Kind of a theme.
Yeah.
in our-
Just everyone just saying no. Just
Yeah.
that's not something that we're going to let you work on, and that's not something we're going to put
Yeah.
something towards. And then
So we were excited that
blew our expectations out of the water.
they were
Yeah.
excited, and they were just excited of like, hey, like, you know, we're glad somebody's kind of taken a look into this or an insight into this. And so we kind of got our plan together and put a call out to the neighborhood that first week, and we're like, hey, we're painting the bridge. Anybody who wants to come volunteer, we'd love to have you come out. You know, expecting maybe
4 people.
4 people. And I made a sign-up genius for it and kind of threw out to neighborhood. And we had so many people show up, and we're just so excited of just like, hey.
I've been happy if one person.
I
showed up.
Yeah.
know. And just showed up and just looking at it like, hey, I've driven by this bridge so many times too and have just always seen the peeling paint. I'm so excited. We're doing something about this.
Mm-hmm.
Got it all, you know, spruced up and you know, Preston was out there with his grinder just, you know, grinding it every single day, you know, for weeks, just kind of getting all that first coat of paint off, and then we prime it and paint it, and we still got one more side to finish painting when the weather gets a little warmer. But then that turned into people saying, hey, it's getting near Christmas. What if we made it a
Decoration.
Christmas
Yeah.
bridge? And so a Christmas light committee was formed, and we put it out to neighborhood again of like, hey, we're looking to put lights up if anybody wants to donate. Tons of people donated money towards it. So now we have a fund set up to where it's going to be able to support decorating the bridge for years to come.
Yeah, because it's got Mardi Gras stuff on it right now, right?
Yeah, and so after, the day before we were done decorating it for Christmas, a pipe broke underneath the bridge and shut it down. And so we missed out some days for it being decorated for Christmas. So we thought like, well, king cake season's coming up. Why don't we just make it a Mardi Gras bridge? It doesn't look like there's going to be parades here anyways this year. And so then it turned into the Mardi Gras bridge. And it's just been a really fun project to kind of spearhead and be a part of. And I'm just happy it made so many people excited about the neighborhood and just, you know, proud of where they live. And that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so cool about it is that, and I mean, all that's connected to me, right, having you guys on today, but it's like, from a mental health standpoint, we're in this really crazy American culture of individualism and isolation and backyards and not saying hey to our neighbors, and yet everybody's yearning to connect and be part of something and be, you know, and no matter what we do, whether it's a bakery or whether it's the fire department or whether it's, you know, whatever business you have the opportunity to bring people in, not from a money marketing standpoint, not from a, you know, this is a business, which all those things are important. But when you have community and you have a purpose and a vision for everybody, I think it all of those things work out easily. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's what I've seen y'all be able to do is just that community bakery feel. And so, I mean, that works.
And that was another thing is we kind of learned from running the bakery is you just can't expect things to be done. You can't expect certain things to just tackle things. Things are there to assist and help, but ultimately, if you want something done, you do need to like.
Got to take the initiative.
You got to put the energy towards it to actually get it to start.
And that was part of a big thing too with us, you know, being in Shreveport. Like we initially when we started dating and got engaged, you know, we had these big plans to move off and you know decided to stay in Shreveport. And we've seen so many friends move off, and we just really want, you know, when we decided we're going to be here, we're here for good. We want to do things to better the place that we live and the place that we work. And I think there's a lot more other people out there that have the same kind of mind frame with Shreveport of, you know, they just want to see it thrive. We just want to see it do well and be a happy place and a place people are proud of. So
yeah, we're all
It's really
raising
good
our
to see
kids
that.
here. Yeah, I mean, all of us want this to be better in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years,
Yes.
and I think we're trending that direction.
I do too.
You know, I think this last couple of years with a bunch of other people, and you know all their names, and I won't name drop all of them, but you know, there's this community of people who are our age that are really trying to make a difference, and I think it's exciting. And it may not look like Dallas or it may not look like other things yet, but I think we definitely have the potential to keep doing that.
I mean, I truly feel like Shreveport's a cool place, and it has its own identity, and it's kind of developing its identity more and more each year. Just with all the even just the food scene. I mean, we have an awesome food scene in Shreveport, and these restaurants, these local restaurants, and these chefs, like, it's a really cool place for the population we have. We have fantastic food.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really glad to kind of see that continuing to grow. And, we want to see our area do well. And one thing, too, with community that's important to us with the bakery, something we haven't really talked about a lot, but we do every day is we do a daily donation to Christian Services or the Homeless Shelter, the Rescue Mission, every day with leftover bread.
Nice.
And so that's something, when we started out, we wanted to do our best to have minimum waste. I can't stand throwing out food that's perfectly good. And so we've partnered up with a couple local organizations, and there's a lot of other places in Shreveport doing the same. And I think there's the good in Shreveport definitely outweighs the not good. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I know we got a few more minutes to wrap up, but what are some partnerships? Because I think that's the other thing where y'all have done really good is kind of partnering with other companies and selling your stuff there. And so what are the ones in Shreveport where people can get your stuff besides at your?
Oh yeah. So we have partnered up with a good handful of restaurants, Corner Pantry in Bossier, Red River Brewing, Maryland's Place and Ralph's Place.
Mm-hmm.
We've done bread for a good handful of restaurants around that we can get, burger on a Lowder bun. We've also really enjoyed partnering up with other local businesses with like Sweetport. We do a cookie cake ice cream with them, and the Reveneer right now is a kind of new up and coming, fantastic chef team, and they have charcuterie boards that you can get at Lowder
Nice.
during Valentine's, and so it's just neat seeing other local businesses that have supported us when we started out, and we want to do the same. As we want to encourage people to grow local business in Shreveport. I think it's such a great thing, and whatever we can do to support, we want to do it.
And whenever it makes sense, we'll try and not just move our products there, or see if you want to purchase our bread to sell as like a burger bun or something like that. But we also try and bring it in as an ingredient, like Hummer and Sons. We use their honey for.
Oh, nice.
We use Mahaffey Farm sausage,
Hope Goat.
Hope Goat Creamery goat cheese. We do Feibel Farms pecans, which are local Louisiana pecans that we put. And then we do all of our milk. Every single bit of milk used in our bakery is Morel Dairy Farm, which is a local dairy. And
That's incredible.
So just high quality
Yeah.
ingredients, and just supporting other local businesses. We really we've seen so much support with people supporting us, and we just want to do what we can also.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's incredible. I mean, there's so many parallels, and we've talked about this before, but, being connected here and being a mental health agency and an integrative wellness center that, like, meets with doctors in Ochsner and, the VA, and, we have these relationships, right, that then help our business do really well. And that's ultimately what it's about, is, like, trust and reciprocation, and not getting in this competitive mindset that, oh, well, I've got to kind of only have this, and if I give you any or, go this direction, that somehow I'm going to be missing out. But, like, no, if we're all sharing and trusting and building, and obviously you got to have boundaries, but, like, it's actually going to be better for all of us, the city, the state.
Absolutely.
We kind of told ourselves from the get-go, we want to get along with everybody. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yep.
And that's been something that's so important. It's like, even, we're great friends with Julianne's, and Lila's are such nice people, and we all do king cakes, and that's okay. Like, we all have our own style, and people can have their favorites, and, just buy local, and rising tide,
lifts all ships.
Lifts all ships.
Yeah.
That is such, I truly, truly believe that, and that's something that, I think
It hasn't
when
hurt
we all,
us. It doesn't hurt them. We feel like it helps.
we all do well. We
draws
all
everything
do
up.
well.
And it brings credibility, right? We were talking about this the other day with, like, EMDR and trauma-informed care, and, I'm always pushing that. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, one thing that sets us apart is being trauma-informed, being addiction-informed, but also being able to, bring some theology into it, and not be Christian counselors, but be Christians who counsel. People who have faith, but also, like, I see atheists and Buddhists and, people who do things that I don't agree with or disagree, but that's not the point. It's, we're going to be in this together, and we're going to walk alongside it together. But at the end of the day, like, there's no competition because the need is so great. If everybody got trained in EMDR in Shreveport, great, because there's way too many people to see that need trauma care. And it's the same thing with y'all. Like, whether it's king cake or not, there's so many people that if you do it well and you do it right, everybody's fine.
Oh yeah, and just even.
And I'm not saying everything is like that, but a lot
Sure.
more of it is like that than people I think give credit for.
Well-
They feel like, oh, I have to have this niche, and if anybody else is doing it, then I'm not going to be successful.
And I feel like Mardi Gras in Shreveport, the more we can grow Mardi Gras in Shreveport, the better for everything related to Mardi Gras. I mean, it's just, it really is something we've been just excited to see, just the support kind of across the board. And it's just, we have a neat community here.
Absolutely. Closing comments, anything that y'all would tell kind of a new starting business, to do or to look out for, tips?
Oh, man.
It's going to be each thing is going to be different. But I will say that Sarah and I are always here. If there's anyone that ever wants to reach out and talk or have questions, we're more than happy to.
For sure. And just, you don't have to have it all figured out. I think just having as much figured out as you can, as you can, and just taking a leap of faith. I think that was the biggest first step for us. It's just stepping out and doing it. And, you'll kind of solve the problems as you go. And, it's worth it. It's really worth it. It's really, we still look up and can't believe we're only 2 years into having our storefront bakery, and it's a lot of hard work, and there's good days and bad days, but it's all worth it.
Yeah, what's been that transition to wrap up? Like what before being, working in the ICU, busting your butt, selling houses and real estate and making good money and having a good career. What's kind of your mental health stance now? Even though, like for me, I mean, I love my job now. I go home every day thankful for it. But it has different stressors. But man, for me, it's way better. So I'm assuming that's how it is for you guys. But what are the kind of pros of that?
It's definitely a different stress.
Definitely. I would say one of the biggest challenges for me is being able to, it's impossible not to bring work home when you own a small business and you're also working with your spouse. And so being able to have kind of boundaries of like, all right, I'm turning off my work brain and turning on my family brain, and just kind of having a little bit of a separation between the two. But I mean, I would say it definitely comes with different stressors, but I feel a lot of just happiness and accomplishment of being able to do what we do, and I'm just excited we get to do something we love and people support it. So it's just a really great feeling.
Awesome. Preston.
I can tell a physical. I feel physically better. It was really kind of taking a toll on me more than I realized before I made the transition. Now I still have stress.
Well, yeah. And in some ways more, right, when it's your name on it.
Yes.
Well, especially, and you're having to plan for, you're responsible for other people's livelihoods now. Like you have people working, at your bakery, and, it is definitely a whole different stress. But to me, it's also kind of a neat realization knowing that, we're pretty much in control of what decisions we make, and we can kind of adapt and adjust as needed. And so I'd say overall it's been really great.
Well, I know your kids enjoy it. I know, they've loved having you home and y'all being there and, doing the whole, baking shop and getting to do the food. And I mean, delicious. How do you keep, your figure with all this food? That's the other question.
Chasing around all these
Yeah,
kids.
exactly. When you have 3, it's like you burn 5,000 calories
True.
a day.
Just running around after them all. And it, really, I have my favorite items at the bakery, but I've had to be like, all right, I'm going to have this once a week. Not snack on it every day.
I'm sure it's hard because it's delicious.
It is. But you're moving so fast.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't really stop I may try something, but it's just a bite, just to make quality control kind of thing. I do walk by the case every day and I'll see the cinnamon rolls, and I just about want to get a cinnamon roll every single day, but I don't.
I would say those are probably that or the I don't remember which I were making. Was it when you did the like cookies with the stuff in the middle and there's like
Cookie
2
sandwiches.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
those are too much. I mean, I remember y'all would post them, and I'd be like getting off work, and I would try to come by, and like there'd be either one left or like none left, and I'd be like, I'm like texting you, bro, bring me a cookie sandwich. Well, look, this has been super fun. Any questions? I always kind of usually ask people, is there anything that you're asking why about, or kind of that you're in a phase of kind of trying to figure out right now that is just kind of going around in your head?
Oh gosh, just for me, just trying to find a balance of, things are going great with the bakery, just keeping it steady like it is, or when do we look at it growing more, and when do we look at just kind of keeping still? And so finding a balance with that is always a question
that you were
in my
talking
mind.
about.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Do I jump back in and what do we do, or do I figure out how I can step back and
Be content.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a strategy. We're trying to figure some things out and open a business, and then we open the Bossier office and then the Ruston office, and now I got people for like a year and a half who want an Alexandria and Pineville office, and trying to figure out, okay, how do I do that and maintain, because I'm like y'all, I want to be home with my kids. Mm-hmm. So people ask me all the time, like, how do you do all the things you do? And I'm like, I do them between 8 and 5. So I have to move something. I have to negotiate something, because I'm not going to do them at 6 o'clock or 7:30. But it is hard, because there are certain, I have to tell Jason, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes. I have to respond to this email or have to do this, and that's just something you have to find a balance from. And so typically I get home and put the phone up and leave it so I don't have to look at it. And then I'm just like, that'll have to be a tomorrow thing. But I think that is the current, like you're saying, that's just going to be continual.
Well, and us choosing to only be open 5 days a week, like that's kind of our way of setting some boundaries for us of like, we're going to have 2 days where the bakery's closed. So, it's a constant back and forth struggle.
Yeah, the thing I would remind people is, at some point, money is money, mm-hmm. and you can't get your time back with your kids and your family. It's not going to increase your quality of life. Like at some point, no matter how much more money you make, you're not any happier. Mm-hmm. And, you can buy a different car or a different vacation, but your increase in happiness on those things are nothing. But your increase in happiness when you're spending time with your family and your friends and you're at peace with what you're doing, mm-hmm. you can't put a dollar sign on it. And so there's always that negotiation of, if we did this and expanded, or we did this talk, or I flew here, I would make $2,500, or I'd do this, but it's like, but then I have to go do it.
Is it worth the
time?
Yeah,
it's the time. And then, that's a weekend. And, it's like, that's the constant thing I think as business owners, it's a great problem to have, but it's a thing that I think people aren't prepared for until you get in it. And then you're like, oh, it's not just about income. And like, then somehow I get that income and I just coast, because when you're successful, it just keeps going, and there's potential. Like, I know y'all have tons of potential to do so much more. And I'll just keep praying for you guys. I'm so proud of y'all, and, all that y'all are doing. I totally support everything you're doing. And I hope that, if you're listening on here and you're in Shreveport and Bossier or anywhere around, or even online, like, visit Lowder's Bakery. So give them kind of your Instagram, Facebook, website stuff.
So we have an active Facebook page and Instagram page. Lowder Baking Co. is our handle. And then our website's lowderbaking.com, Lowder baking.com. Yep. And has our full menu on there, and you can kind of check out social media, and we're pretty regular on posting lots of pictures of baked goods. So
that's awesome.
We'd love for you to come visit.
Yeah, I'll put that on the on our YouTube channel and on our iTunes and all that stuff, so people can just follow the link. And
awesome.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yay! Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, this was awesome. Okay, guys, subscribe to our channel. Follow us, ClintDavisCounseling.com. You can go on there and get the podcast, or you can follow to our Facebook or Instagram. We constantly are trying to post positive, encouraging things for people to, get their mental health in order. Appreciate the Lowders coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.